Hi everyone, this is Ricky Spencer and welcome to another of our series in Voices, Sociology of Media. And today we've got somebody who I've followed for quite a long time, and I'm not a stalker, but I have sort of followed Michael throughout his journey from the 90s up to now. And Michael Barnett is a long-time co-convener of ALF, and I probably didn't pronounce that correct, so please correct me, Michael. ALF Melbourne.
Aleph, A-L-E-P-H, Aleph
Aleph,
Melbourne,
Melbourne.
yes.
Yeah, he was born in Melbourne, Australia, in '69. So he's 1 year younger than myself. He is an activist in our LGBTIQ community, very passionate about inclusion and accessibility. And I've watched him and listened to him throughout the years and kind of felt very proud of things that he was achieving because I didn't have confidence the way Michael seemed to have in the LGBTIQ community. And Michael, I would love you to tell us and everyone a little bit about yourself, and congratulations on your esteemed award, Order of Australia, that you have received. I was so elated and I was clapping. Even though we've never met, I was so proud.
Thank you. So shall I go?
Yep.
Thank you. So Ricky, yes, as Ricky has said, I was born in 1969, so that makes me 53, verging 54, and came out as a gay man in 2000 and, gosh, it's a long time ago. No, I apologize, 1995. It's been quite a journey, in fact, and I grew up in a family in a household in Melbourne um, with a very strong Jewish identity, and I guess I attended a lot of Jewish organizations like Jewish Scouts, and attended a Jewish community center, and went to a synagogue. That was all a long time ago. And at the same time, through my early teens into my 20s, I felt a struggle with my sexuality, and it wasn't something that I came to terms with until I was 25, 26 years old. So, sort of just over half my life ago. And it was a problem through my school years, and I struggled with bullying, and I struggled with how to come to terms with my sexuality. But eventually I was able to deal with all of that, and it was quite a change in my life and a turning point. And sort of not long after I came out as a gay man, and I am somewhat comfortable with the term gay man, but I'd rather not have to use a label. I felt I wanted to provide a safer space for people who were essentially, that had a similar lived experience to me. Sexuality, that one wasn't, it wasn't a conventional sexuality, and uh, in terms of being same-sex attracted. And from then on, I sort of got more and more involved in the queer community, and discovered that there were other challenges for people face, such as to do with gender identity, being transgender, people who are intersex or queer. And so over the years, kind of decided I would be there for anybody and everybody who needed assistance, or I felt I could help make the journey a better for them. And so that was kind of my activism, and I kind of did that within the Jewish community, but also outside the Jewish community as well, because there were a lot of people, and a lot of people who needed assistance. No, I'm not doing it all by myself, but it's my little bit. So I guess that's some of my journey.
Michael, I was sort of interested, like being similar age to yourself. For me, when I struggled to know what I was, who I was, there was no internet or computers. And I grew up in a very Catholic, very strict Catholic family, very strict Catholic school, private school. And I could not find any. And I was frightened when I used to go to the library and try and look for, because I would be called a fag, wolf, and all that. And I had to kind of know about it, and but I was frightened. And I'm just wondering, what was your experiences like in high school? did you do your own type of research about looking at it, or
I think so. It was kind of when I was working. I used to work for RMIT University back in the 1990s, mid to late 1990s, and it was during that time that I came out. I accepted my sexuality, and I remember being in the library, the Building 5 library at RMIT in the city in Melbourne, and I went looking at books, and there wasn't the internet for me back then like there is now. But I worked for the IT department, the campus IT or information technology department. So I had access to an early internet, but there wasn't there weren't the type of resources online then that were now. So I went to the library, and I do remember looking up books in the library, trying to find out a bit more about this thing that had started playing on my mind in a way that I'd never before. And it was kind of around 1995. And I did read some books on human sexuality, and I think that helped me. But it wasn't something that I felt comfortable talking to anybody about at that stage. And it wasn't until some months later that I was able to first speak to a person about that, and then take it further and come out sort of more openly to family and friends. I do
Michael?
know what you mean.
Yeah, that's great. I was thinking also, Michael, when your journey, what was it like for you when you went into a venue? Like, because remember the 90s was all about venue. We didn't have the meeting spaces or apps that people have now. What was that feeling like for you when you had to go into, say, a space? Was there
Mm.
anxiety or?
Yeah, so I did. So it's interesting you asked the question, Ricky. I do remember one year there was, I think there was a street party in Collingwood area, sort of round about 94, 95, and in Smith Street, Collingwood. I'm sure there was a street party there of some sort. And a friend of mine took me into Hares and Hyenas back in Smith Street, Collingwood. I think it was Smith Street. And I knew it was a gay bookshop or queer bookshop. I wasn't out, probably 1994. And I walked around this shop with her, and I'm not sure if she took me in there for a particular reason. I felt incredibly uncomfortable, and I just didn't want to be anywhere near there. I just didn't know how to deal with it, didn't know how to cope, didn't know what to do. It was awkward, and the sooner I got out of that shop, the better. Of course, and that was when I wasn't out and didn't feel comfortable with my sexuality. Subsequently, of course, that's been quite different, and of course, I love to be. Unfortunately, the shop will no longer exist if it hasn't yet closed, but that's in a different street now. But they aren't there. But it was, and it has been quite a journey for that shop. But I would be very comfortable in a gay queer bookshop these days.
Mm. And what was it like for you when you started to affirm yourself, and kind of accept this is who I am? Did that change perhaps your relationship with your family in any way?
I I'd struggled in some regards with aspects of my relationship with my family before I'd come out. And it was actually when I did come out, and I suspect it's kind of another way around where it wasn't so much coming out helped me deal with relationship with my family, but getting to that point in my life where I felt comfortable talking about my sexuality. At the same time as that, I also felt comfortable talking about or resolving those interpersonal issues that I had with in parts of my family. So I think it was kind of like an emotional maturity for me, and sort of I have heard, and it's not unsurprising that perhaps men don't mature emotionally till mid-20s, and it was kind of like that for me. And I felt once sort of that had all come together for me, that I was able to move on with my life and do things, I guess, in a more mature way.
Mm. What does being affirmed in your community now mean to you in 2023?
Well, I guess so. I mean, when you say affirmed, I guess, with reference to having been the recipient of an Order of Australia and having gone through a very long journey of activism and advocacy and sort of challenging intolerance,
Mm.
to receive letters of congratulations and to have peak bodies, applaud my having been awarded that. That's it feels good. It feels that the journey hasn't been a waste of time. That people have seen some of the things I've done and they've listened and they've understood and felt it perhaps was necessary. It would have been nice if along the way there had been more outspoken people, but irrespective of that, I'm glad I've been sufficiently outspoken to have made a difference and people to have noticed. And I think, as much as nice as that is, it doesn't mean we've got there yet. There's a heck of a lot more work to do, and there's a lot more intolerance to challenge and attitudes to change and people to educate. I do see and hear of more people who are supporting kids who are gender diverse and transgender, and I'm heartened when I see or hear of those people saying, "Oh, I've got a trans son or a trans daughter or non-binary kids," and we're supporting them. And when I hear that, I know that these people can then have conversations with other people, and it perhaps hasn't happened in a vacuum because I'm sure these people needed examples and role models and information. And I'm sure that some of what I've done has been useful to these people over the years.
Mm. What sort of advice would you give to, say, young people who are listening to this right now? They might be in high school, maybe they're in a Jewish school or a Catholic school or government school. Maybe they feel gender diverse or unsure. What would be the key things that you've learned in your life where you are today that you'd like to impart on those young people listening?
So I guess the most important thing to say is believe in yourself and that you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. These are perfectly natural feelings. Um, any shame that you may feel is because there are people who are less accepting and less tolerant, and that's a problem that they have to come to terms with. But by all means, if the young person who feels excluded or not part of it, or they need to reach out for support and find people to talk to, and there are people who will be able to help them. There is nothing wrong with being like that, and you can't make it go away no matter whether you can't pray the gay away. So
Uh, and Michael, with all your work that you've done, and I'm now sort of my mantra for this year is care culture, bringing the concept of care. And I'm just wondering, for you, what does care mean to you?
well, I think it's important for me personally to look after myself, because sometimes it can be quite a challenge. Putting oneself out there. People will sometimes call you names and say things, and sometimes the media is less friendly. Some aspects of the media like to have a go at queer people. So I have a supportive husband, and that's important that I look after my personal health and care. And of course, caring for other people too, and providing safe spaces and providing support networks, and understanding that it's difficult sometimes in this world. I mean, it's difficult just being yourself, let alone being different. So, yeah, looking after yourself, I think it is very important, and of course, there are a lot of people who have a lot of struggles, and feel a sense of not so much obligation, but desire to make it a smoother journey.
And Michael, What are your sort of key projects or things that you're wanting to tackle for the next couple of years?
In terms of my sort of queer activism, I feel one of the issues that has been building momentum is trying to overturn the injustice of uh, gay men, but not just gay men who can't donate blood. I think that that's a long-standing struggle. The restriction is on men who have sex with men, and some trans women too. I believe it's an issue for some trans women who have sex with men who are deemed a risk to the blood supply because of perceived unsafe sexual practices. However, if you have safe sex or you have sex with people who are HIV negative, then there should not be any risk to the blood supply. And I think that you need to be assessed on your safety, not on who you have sex with. So that's something that's important to me, and it's an ongoing struggle. Of course, there's always that religious discrimination bill or whatever's looming, some sort of threat to our existence. And the Labor government has said that they want to perhaps do this in a more friendly way than the Liberal government ever did. One sort of felt that the Liberal government were trying to make it our lives as miserable as possible, but the Labor government seems to be a bit more supportive. I don't trust them, but we'll see what happens. And so that's another thing, is sort of making sure that any anti-discrimination legislation passes in a way that's friendly to LGBTIQ plus people.
I'm just also thinking now, Michael, what would you say to, say, researchers who are listening at the moment who want to, say, work in our community spaces? What's one or two pieces of advice that you'd like to pass on to them in terms of having people like yourself with living, I should say, experiences that they need to consider?
Researchers in terms of what the work that the projects are researching, or
just having involvement of having queer perspectives, and taking into account our living experiences when they're formulating their research. There's an argument sometimes that having people who aren't LGBTIQ research in spaces, having that perspective, and then using the experiences of our lives, can sometimes be misconstrued as a selfish way for them, but it doesn't truly reflect the true nature of our own experiences.
I guess generally, I mean, people doing research should probably take into account diverse sexuality and gender. I mean, in terms of specific research into lived experiences of queer people, I'm not sure specifically if there's anything that I could add to that, but broadly speaking, just when they're researching people, to consider that there are all ranges of people out there with all types of different experience, and not to make assumptions around heteronormativity or around conventional gender binary, for example.
And just as we're about to finish, Mark, I wanted to sort of reflect a little bit about the young boy growing up, in the suburbs, in that when you were kind of trying to work out who you are. What would you tell your younger self now, with the wisdom that here we are today speaking to someone who's received the highest accolade of recognition of who Michael is today, all the work, of all the controversy, and there was that little boy who was probably feeling lost and lonely? What would you tell him? What would be the key messages you'd like to tell young Michael?
Dear Michael, have faith in yourself. Look, as a youngster, I remember, I mean, it was sort of exciting in some ways, being that sort of boy, sort of learning a bit about my sexuality or whatever it was back then, but not at the same time. I didn't enjoy the being bullied part of it, and I didn't enjoy. I think what I really wanted was people to give me support around me and tell me that it was okay. But that never came up. So I think if I was reflecting back to how I was then, I think I would want to say, well, look, you'll be okay. There will be someone that one day you will fall in love and you can get married, or you will get married. And thinking about children, well, I hadn't wanted children because I didn't think I'd ever be able to get married. Well, now knowing that I could get married, maybe children might have been part of that dream of mine. So it's, and of course, you know, I don't have children. It's something that does play on my mind a lot. Would have liked the opportunity to. It didn't happen for a range of reasons, but as a young person, it would have been nice to have that opportunity to dream about being married, have children, have a family, and have the same opportunities that my brother and other people had. So I guess I'd like to think that I could just have dreamed big. And I say to myself, do dream big.
I like that. And that's for everyone listening. That's a wonderful way to finish up. Now, Michael, if there are people listening who are passionate, who want to support you and they want to get involved in, especially in relation to the donation of blood, is there a website, or can they get in contact with you, or a space that people can kind of meet up?
There is a campaign running at the moment. The name escapes me immediately, but there is a Facebook group called Gay Blood's Not Good ? And
What we can do too is put some links. So everyone,
yes,
while we finish, I'll talk to Michael. We'll put the links.
yes,
So people want to get in touch with you or want to speak about and get involved, who are
yes,
passionate. I would love to see this up and support it, because I think it's
yes,
time that we do sort of challenges. We need to challenge the existence of medical dominance in some spaces, and you know, this is important. And I feel it coming from you, Michael, but I can also feel the importance of this too.
yeah.
In the
There is
80s.
a campaign. I will provide you with the link to that campaign, and you can put the link in the video wherever you want to.
Yep. Michael, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Again, congratulations on your award. And yeah, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
It's been a pleasure having a chat with you, Ricky. Thank you very much.